I would like to share a little bit about my experience with Qigong, and especially with Tai Chi Qigong, which is the Qigong with the spontaneous movement. I studied a lot of Chinese medicine and acupuncture, Chinese herbs, and I studied different types of Qigong, the movement exercise in order for health, or like martial arts. And they all were not very satisfying. I couldn't really feel it, and the main thing was that it was all very controlled. You had to control your breath in certain ways and make certain movements 6 times and think about this and that, and it wasn't really doing it for me until at one point I met Dr. Shen, and he introduced me to Tai Chi Qigong. He's the founder of the Tai Chi Qigong, and the big difference of this type of Qigong with other types of Qigong is that they really use the earth force. They really use the opposite of gravity. There's gravity, the force that pulls us down, and there is something like the opposite of gravity. By using this force, it opens the channels and it opens the Dantian and it activates the Dantian. And an active Dantian is what creates spontaneous movements. And an active Dantian is actually like a second brain in your body that exactly knows where there is tension, and it starts to recorrect itself. It makes all the functions in your body work more as a whole. And not only that, it's also on a mental level or just an awareness level. There is this sense of wholeness. So it even helps you to understand how we are all connected and how we are as a planet all connected, and how important it is to keep it healthy, to keep the planet healthy. But without going too far into the whole planet, it's now more about you and about understanding that the Dantian is an energy field. There are actually 3 Dantians, but I talk about that later in these lectures. We now speak about the lower Dantian. The lower Dantian has a tremendous energy and knowledge about who you are and about how energy works for you. And I was never really, in the other types of Qigong that I experienced, I was never really confronted with my Dantian. They spoke about it, and they spoke very much about it as something that you needed to gather the energy and you needed to hold it and build it up there. But it felt very uncomfortable, and I will later explain why that was. I later understood that there is something as expelling energy, expelling binchi, tension, and that is what a Dantian naturally does. So when I started to do it for the first time, I didn't experience much. I was in a big hall with maybe 30 people, and it was with Dr. Shen's daughter, Shen Jin, and I saw all these people around me making all these funny movements and sounds and yawning and even yelling and jumping and shaking and vibrating. And I thought at first that it was pretty strange. But I was very curious because I could see that in a way it was not that they were really doing it. And so I went back the second time, and the second time it happened to me too. I was standing in the central posture, and the wuxi stance, the posture in which you develop spontaneous movements, and I noticed that my hands started to shake, and it started to shake involuntarily. I remember just thinking, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. And I was so amazed by my own body's response. And then I remember afterwards to feel this incredible release and of emotions and of tension. And the interesting thing was I wasn't even aware that I was holding that tension. But I started to experience this incredible lightness. And I started to go really into it, and I started doing it more and more and more. And the spontaneous movements started to develop And so it started with just movement with my arms, and then with my my shoulder started to move, my whole body started to move, and I started jumping and shaking, and all the other the things that the other people experienced, I now experience too. And I started to realize that there is this innate awareness in your body that knows exactly where there is tension, and like a radar, it goes to that area and it starts to allow that part to release. And it is amazing, because afterwards you start feeling it, you start really feeling transformed, and you notice that certain thought patterns even have left. So it was of a tremendous help for me. Not that I had particularly health issues. In general, I'm pretty healthy. But I started noticing when there was an issue that it would leave immediately. And so I would love you to experience this too. And it is a tremendous treasure that you always carry with you. And a very important thing in the Qigong, or to create this spontaneous movement, or to activate the Dantian, is your stance. And that is the big difference in the other types of Qigong that I experienced. The stance which you do is more on your front feet. So the weight of your body is more on the front of your feet. Instead of being straight up, you're more on the front of your feet. And in another video I will show you what it actually is. And this actually opens up the point beneath your feet, your foot chakra, you could say, or the first point of your kidney meridian. And it that will allow this earth force to raise up through your body, connect to your Dantian, and that will create the awakening of the Dantian. And so that is a very important part that a very important key that I want you to get when you do the exercises again, to really be aware that instead of having your weight on your whole foot, that you stand a little bit more on the front foot. And in the beginning it feels very uncomfortable. In the beginning it feels like this is so unnatural. But once you start doing it, and once you start to notice how there is this awareness of this energy coming up from the earth through your body, through your soles of your feet, and actually connecting to your Dantian, connecting to your spine and stretching up your spine, that will change it. Then you will get used to it, and it will become very natural. And you start to notice that that is something that you can do in everything you do. Another important thing that happens when the Dantian becomes more active is that the intervertebral space opens up. So your spinal column that consists of all the vertebrae start to become taller, become longer, because the intervertebral space, there's this pushing force in your Dantian or in your spinal column that actually opens up the space in between the vertebrae. And that actually, it makes sense. That makes that the blood vessels and the nerves work better to nourish your organs and all the functions in your body. So this is an important detail that I want you to get to. Be aware of the soles of your feet and the point right underneath your feet, right between the balls of your feet. Like in my hand it would be this point that you're actually standing above. You keep your heels connected to the ground, but the weight is on that point. And in a way you're almost sucking up the energy from the earth, and that will create this upward movement, and that will create spontaneous movement.